Christy Belcamino, welcome to Behind the Fiction.
Thank you, Steve. I'm very excited to talk to you again. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time, and I was reflecting back on not the first time we talked, but the first time I read one of the books of that we're going to be talking about today, and that was the first book in the Gia series. And I read that on an airplane going to the very first 20 Books to 50K conference. And on the way back, I read book 2 in the series. And I was so excited to get to the end and see that there was a link to get the third book, but I couldn't get it on the plane. So I got home and clicked that link and saw that it was a pre-order, and I panicked because I had loved the first 2 books so much. So I went on Facebook the first thing the next morning. I don't think I posted this to you. I think I just kind of posted it and tagged you saying how much I liked them and how devastated I was that the next one was a pre-order and I couldn't start reading it right then. And you were gracious enough to just send me a copy of the book. And I'm forever grateful.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you. Of course, I'm going to send you the book.
So, I mean, the first time we talked, Gia, I don't know if Gia was something that you had been planning for. Way back then, you were a traditionally published author and you wrote
Yes.
thrillers, and you transitioned from traditionally published to indie published, which I think is a fascinating transition. And I do want to get into that. But let's first talk about the Gia series and where the idea came from for that and how it's grown since those first few books.
Sure. It's been a really pleasant surprise because I think my traditional series was really fun to write, but I also was very cognizant of what was out there and what people wanted to read. And I'm not saying like I wrote a book thinking like people, I should write this because people will like it this way. But in the back of my mind, I feel like it was sort of, yeah, this is how crime fiction books are written, and this is how a traditional mystery book is written. But meanwhile, every time there was a gap, where I wasn't writing a book, I would find, like one of the traditional ones, I'd find something else to do. And I thought, I'm just going to write this crazy book just for me, like this character that I'm sure nobody would like because she is a train wreck, but that's the kind of character I want to write. And I
Uh-huh.
want to live, and I want to live vicariously in her world. And so, and I actually did get a little bit of negative feedback when I first wrote that book from my writing group. Like they had been reading my Gabriella Giovanni traditional mysteries,
Mm-hmm.
and then I threw that at them. And in Minnesota, we're Minnesota nice. And so they never said anything mean about it or bad about it, but the lack of enthusiasm spoke volumes. And so I thought, that was really fun to write, whatever. And I set it aside and went on with ones that I could give to my agent because I didn't think my agent would want that either. And then at one point, I think this was my second agent, I said, I have this book that I really like a lot, and I just don't think it's a traditional book. I don't think the Big Five is going to want to buy it. So I think I'm going to traditionally publish it. What do you think? And she said, well, why don't you send it to me and let me look at it? Because you don't, you might not know, like maybe it is something. And then so she got back to me and she's like, oh, I was surprisingly touched by so many scenes in that book. And she had really nice things to say about it, but she said, you're right, I don't think it's a Big Five book. And so then I said, well, I'm putting it up and doing it myself. And because I had done, my traditionally published series had died.
Mm-hmm.
Harper Collins only did the first 4 books. And so I had published the 5th book right after I talked to my agent, and it did really, really well. It did, probably better than my other books had done. And maybe because I had a fan base, they'd read the first
Mm-hmm.
4. But I was shocked that I could put it out on my own, had paid for an editor, paid for a cover designer, did it as professionally as I could. And it did well, and I got all the money instead of like this much of the money when you're traditionally published. And I thought, And meanwhile, I had friends who were like, yeah, Christy, we've been telling you about this for a long time and you just haven't been paying attention. And so then I put up Gia and I started to pay attention to the 20 books group. And I realized, like, if you want to have any success in indie publishing, then you need a series. And especially in a genre like mystery, you need a series and you need to put them out pretty quickly if you're going to make a mark. So I put that one out, and then I spent a month writing the next one, and then I spent a month writing the next one. So I put 3 out in a row. And then there might have been a couple months, and then I put out the fourth one. But meanwhile, I just am going to publish my 12th book that isn't necessarily in the series because I've pulled 2 out of the actual series order, but it'll be the 12th book with that character, Gia Santella, who has grown a lot. She is not quite the wild card she was in the very beginning. So she's grown
Right.
up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you gave a little bit of hint about Gia. I mean, she was kind of a hot mess in the beginning, and I still remember reading the first chapter of the book at an airport. I was in St. Louis, and turning to the guy I was with. We were going out to 20 books together, and going, "This book is amazing. I just can't wait to read
Wow.
the rest of it from the first chapter." And it's just, the kick-ass female protagonist, it really appeals to me, and the whole hot mess thing really appeals to me, although she was a little messier than than some hot messes. But just the way that the character of Gia has evolved over the course of the books, and the relationships that she has with her friends, it's such a fantastic series. And I have a few series that whenever someone puts out a new book, or I find out about a new book, it's stop everything I'm reading and read this. And, both of your series, the 2 that we're going to talk about today, are on that list.
Wow.
And so, I mean, last week, was it the end of last week? Sometime last week, the 5th book in a spin-off series, the Queen of Spades series, came out. And so that went to, okay, stop what you're reading and read that. So let's talk about the spin-off series, because I remember when the Queen of Spades first showed up in the Gia books, going, "Oh my gosh, what a fantastic character." And we must have talked,
Yeah.
because you said, "Oh, she's going to have her own book." And I was super excited about it. So
Yeah.
what's the story behind that? Why not just keep writing the same series?
Well, just like you've said, like she popped into the Gia series, and I thought, wow, I want her more, but I can't have 2 characters like that in one book very much. They're both super strong, powerful women, and I've done a book like that before, and it's a hard balance. And I wanted to just explore Eva, the Queen of Spades, on her own. And I remember being really anxious to do it because I had all these books up for pre-order. I usually am really good about plotting my year and what I'm going to write and how I'm going to publish. And so I didn't have a gap for the Queen of Spades. So that book was like ruminating in my brain for a long time. So when I finally sat down to write it, I was really excited to go into her world. I'm 51. Gia's like 22. So and Eva is probably 30. So it's been fun to write her because she's a little more of a sophisticated character, a little more like motherly. She had 2 kids. And so Eva is like, every character I write, bad guys, good guys, everything, is a little bit of me. So Eva would be a little bit more of my motherly side. And Gia was probably when I was just a crazy kid. So, if I'm channeling myself into my characters, I won't talk about like the really bad ones that I channel myself into, but that's the Italian side. We're not going to go there. But yeah, so I enjoy writing both. And I do. Gia's first person. She's so easy and fun to write. She just flows because, I know that character so well. Eva is a little more challenging because she's third person. And so that kind of helps me keep them differentiated when I'm writing. my
That's
editor
clever.
will my editor will say sometimes you're not doing a good job with your points of view, because I'm going from writing one book one month to writing the other one the next month. And so there'll be passages where like, oh crap, I'm in first person. They're bad, bad, bad.
So when you decided to spin off the series, you've got essentially 2 characters in the same world, the same universe,
So
so to speak. And so you've got these timelines that have to kind of mesh. How did you work that out?
not very well. I'm still trying to get it more aligned. For the most part, I try to avoid avoid somebody like realizing like this is here and this is there. I'm still trying to get them more up to speed, because I had to start the Eva series with kind of her backstory, her origin story. And so that's been a little bit tough. I don't think I've done it perfectly. I hope that it's not super jarring, like if there is a discrepancy, that it's not going to take someone right out of the story. But it's been a little bit tough. And the pace I've been on, I have not gone back and totally measured. My editor has not said anything to me about it. And he's the reason I pay him and the reason I love him is because he does not mince words, and he is not, I don't need an editor to, tell me things are great. I need an editor to scold me and tell me what, and that's, thank God that's who I have now. So.
So let's talk about the components of your books, kind of from a technical standpoint. The characters are similar in that they're very strong women. They deal with really bad things. They're just bad things going on, and they throw themselves into these bad things. There's always a couple of kind of tearjerker moments in your books. I say that, I'm a guy, so I'm just, obviously it doesn't affect me, but for other people, they might be tearjerker moments. And sometimes it's like right at the end, and it's like, damn it, when's the next book coming out? Because I'm just so into it. And
Yeah.
so is that intentional? Do you try and get that emotion into each book?
Absolutely. Like for me, I do like action, adventure, fast paced. But what I really love is books that make me cry. And I actually call it the cry factor. Like
Okay.
if a book or a movie makes me cry, then that's it. That's all it takes. It's like it's moved me emotionally. So I really, as I'm writing, like I'll get into the characters, and I'm not like, oh, I need a cry moment. It just, as I'm in their world, then experiencing those emotions, it does come up. And you know, I'm not like, I guess I'm not hard boiled writer. Like I'm not some of these action thrills. I need that. I need the love. Like if there's romance in my books, and there's
Hmm.
heartache, and there's an emotion. And so for better or worse, maybe some people aren't looking for that when they want like a fast action packed books, but that's what I love to write. That's what I love to read.
Okay. And I don't remember where it was along the timeline for Gia, but you wrote a book in Emily Kimmelman's world, so to speak.
Hmm.
And it was your character and Emily's character working together in this story. And that was fascinating. What was that like?
That was tough. That was really tough. Emily reached out to me, and um, this was when Kindle Worlds was still around,
Hmm.
and so offered to allow me to write any way I wanted in her world. And I said, well, I would want both of our characters working together. I mean, I don't think I could just write your character. That would be tough for me. So I took it on, and then of course I respect the hell out of Emily, so I was very nervous about getting her character right. And I think what I did, I had these two, and this is when I was talking about Gia and Eva earlier, I had these two really strong protagonists in
Hmm.
one book. And that's a tough thing to write. I think that's really tough. And I wanted them to be friends too. I didn't want them to hate each other. So it was a struggle. And I think because I respect Emily and I was kind of in her world, or invited into her world, that I made her character stronger, and I made Gia a little bit wimpier. And so I had some longtime readers, it was book 5, I believe,
Okay.
who said, I love the book, but Gia was, basically a little less badass than I like. And I thought, yeah, I know. I don't know what else to do about it. I probably will never do, I think they still enjoyed the book, um, but that was tough. I couldn't really find the balance where one of them had to be stronger than the other for it to
Hmm.
work. And so Gia took the hit because I respected Emily, and I didn't want to, her character to be wimpier. So does that make sense?
Understandable. Yeah, and I
Okay.
really enjoyed that book. I think we had talked before you'd done that, and so I
Hmm.
knew it was coming. I knew what it was going to be, and I sadly I was not familiar with Emily Kimmelman, who is a brilliant writer.
Yes.
Um, Prior to that, and I read that, and then read some more of her series, which I also really enjoy. But I just found it interesting, and I really enjoyed the way that the two characters kind of work together. and sort of at
Phew,
opposite
phew,
ends and
I
together.
pulled
Yeah,
it
so
off.
it was fun. That was a fun series.
Oh, I'm glad I pulled it off because it was tough.
So audio, the Gia series is working its way into audio. What's up with that?
Oh, that's interesting. I did just reach out to a narrator to do a box set of the Gia. So I think I'll probably at some point this year I'll have her narrate books 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the Gia series, and release it as a box set. She actually, this narrator I reached out to, she was hired by Tantor, who bought the audio rights to my book Coming for You.
Hmm.
And so she was the narrator for my book Coming for You, and I just thought she knocked it out of the park. So I'm hoping to have that same narrator at some point this year. I know it takes a little bit of time, and I don't I'm not sure exactly when, but that's the plan. And then hopefully it will do all the books, because I don't know about you, Steve, but I sort of feel like that is where all the readers are going to be in a couple of years. You know, not all of them, but a lot of the younger readers, that's what they do.
Yeah, and I know for me personally, once I start listening to a series on audio, that's
Mhm.
just the way I like to consume the series. So
Okay.
with Gia, if you wind up doing them all, I'll probably just start back at the beginning and listen to them, and that'll be great. I would enjoy
Okay.
that.
Well, that's really interesting, because I didn't realize that maybe some current people who readers who have read the series would want it in audiobook, you know, after they've read it. So I thought it'd be a new audience. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think people would.
Okay.
I don't know. Your books are rereadable because the
Wow.
characters are so much fun. So you want to go and visit them again. I mean, the good thing is you produce them so quickly that you oftentimes don't have to go back. I remember, I think it was November, December. I don't remember what the book was, but I got to the end and there was a click here to pre-order the next book, and I did, and I saw like 5 other books on the list that you could pre-order. So I'm just click, 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 and so then when I got to the end of the most recent book, I'm like, where's the link to the
Oh,
pre-order? I was
yeah.
panicking.
Yeah, and I'm usually a little more organized. There's been a couple different factors why I didn't put a pre-order in. One, what's going on right now in the
Mhm.
world. I'm in my bedroom right now. This is my new office, and I have teenagers and a husband home, and so I just felt like giving myself all. And there's a couple other things going on too, but giving myself a little tiny bit of wiggle room,
Mhm.
and not holding myself to that. But there definitely will be more Gia books and more Eva books this year for sure. So I
Great.
just, yeah.
Now, another thing that I think you're particularly good at is like community building around your books. You've got a Facebook group.
Mhm.
You do videos with your husband. That's a weekly thing, I think, right?
Yeah, usually Saturday mornings. Yeah.
So tell us about the Facebook group.
So I love my Facebook group. I actually had them vote on a name for themselves and for us, I guess. I'm part of it. Paisanos was the one that they picked, which was perfect. Because obviously my books, almost every single one has an Italian American character. There's one series that doesn't, two series that don't. But anyway, they are so great. I haven't had to do this very often, but I've just said, this is a place where we're supporting each other and we're empowering women, and we're not being dicks, basically. So,
Uh-huh.
and for instance, I had one person in the group who said something about older people, and I said, I think you're, great, but I just don't think my group's a good place for you because we're older people.
Yes, I'm a member of the group, and yes, we're older people.
So if you aren't supporting older people, you might not want to be. And I'm really open like that. Like I put posts all the time. Like if you don't like the F word, and I think I don't want to say it because it's a podcast, but I would say it normally. If you don't like this, then this isn't my books aren't a good fit for you. I'm totally okay with saying my group may not be a good fit for you, but the people who are there support each other. They're always encouraging. If someone's having something, a bad day, they're bolstering each other up, and I feel like I know so many of them, the active ones. Even though we've never met in person, I know about them, and it's really cool. And I love that you see it that way as a community, because that's what I want. That's what I'm hoping. Um, I do feel like I know those people and care about them. So not
And
all
there's a lot of
700. but the ones that are active, and I know.
There's a lot of good food pictures in there too. I will say that. I mean, I don't know whether you really eat that well because I've seen you and you don't look like you eat anything, but
I wish
there's
I
a
ate
lot of
that
really
well,
good
but
looking food there. Yeah.
yeah, they are good at contributing those pictures as well.
Well, what's the best place? Is the group the best place for people to reach you and learn more about you, or is the website, or what?
You know, either the group or the author page, because I've noticed that some things I can't do in the group anymore. Like I've had a heck of a time doing a live video in the group recently. So if they're on my author page, then probably they're gonna get all the need to know information.
Hmm.
And if they want just more personal interaction, then they can hop on over to the group too.
Okay. And I can tell you guys that are listening, if you like mysteries and thrillers and you like strong female characters, you're going to love this series. It's in Kindle Unlimited. The first book of the Gia series is City of the Dead. Christie's also got a box set of the first four. So if you're Kindle Unlimited, that's a good way to just use one credit and get four books. I think there's a new box set for the first four of the Eva series as well. But if it were me, I would start with the Gia series and just kind of follow along in the order in which the books were published and read them that way. They'll make more sense.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good way to start because the old fourth book was called Lone Raven, but it's a novella. So I actually took it out of the series page, and you can only get it in the box set in the 1 to 4. So you kind of get an extra book that you wouldn't find otherwise if you do the box set.
Nice. And that's the one
Yeah.
in Mexico, right?
Yes, in
Yes, I
Baja
really enjoyed
California.
that one. Yeah,
Cool.
it was short, but it was
Yes.
powerful.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, Christy, it's great speaking with you again. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. And thank you for all the nice things you said. I'm not sure if I can fit out the door with my big head now. So thanks. I'll go talk to my teenagers and I'll be put right back down to where I belong.
That will do it.
All right. Thank you, Steve. It was great talking to you.